Story 1. Balancing dial-up internet with phone calls was necessary. You could not have both at the same time. Scheduling was essential. Story 2. Downloading a song from Napster, Kazaa, or LimeWire and actually getting the song you want. For a whole year, I thought ZZ Top sang Cocaine, because that is what LimeWire told me. It is actually Eric Clapton's song. Story 3. How early Google searches worked. Something like cat plus machine, not animal, not furry, or something similar. Story 4. We used to spend time making our away messages perfect. Find something funny to say, give it a special font, some colors, maybe ASCII art, things like that. Generation Z has probably never been away from the keyboard long enough to need special messages about how you will be right back. Story 5. Programming with no place to ask questions. You literally had to read the manual and figure it out for yourself. I learned 68,000 assembly language the hard way back in about 1990. Story 6. Complete anonymity. No one was trying to find your identity or home address. Governments did not care. No one was secretly listening to you through your computer. Story 7. Critical thinking. I am a millennial, and even I am blown away and disappointed that the first thing people do is turn to artificial intelligence just for it to think for them and tell them how to feel. For example, Grok, why is this bad? Under every tweet. Story 8. Finding information was difficult. Google did not exist, so you could not simply search for a website. You had to know the name of the website to visit it. Pornography was also not as available as it is today. You had to go out looking for it. Going to a place you had never been before was an adventure unless you printed directions from MapQuest or were wealthy enough to have a GPS device. Most of the time, you had to find your way on your own. Story 9. Boolean searches and operators. I see people ask questions here that are very basic and could be answered much faster than the time it takes to post the question. I was curious about why this happened, so I started sending private messages. The overwhelming response was, I couldn't figure out how to search for it. This puzzles me, especially since Google is now advanced enough to understand entire questions and provide answers directly. Story 10. Using the internet as a helpful tool to improve your life, not living your life through it. While all generations do it, Generation Z will have witnessed more people being permanently online than any older generations. Story 11. Honestly, using a basic software menu seems to be beyond most of Generation Z these days. Kids have been on applications their whole life, and the day they have to sit down and use engineering or professional software, they lock up and cannot do anything. It is wild. Story 12. Right before Google appeared, there were web crawlers that you could use to search across multiple search engines. Story 13. I miss network news clients that would remember which Usenet posts I had not seen and would not show them to me again. So when I visited a news group, instead of an infinite list of posts mixed with ads, I would only see the posts I had not already seen unless I had marked them as unread. If there had not been much traffic in the news group, I would see only a few posts and could catch up on them quickly. Story 14. Keeping track of how much time you have used on the internet, including the number of free hours or the amount you were paying for at the time. Story 15. Using a command line to talk to your modem and browser. Different sites had a mixture of hypertext transfer protocol, file transfer protocol, and Gopher interfaces. It is kind of funny that what we used to call renting time on a mainframe is now called a cloud subscription. Plus CA change and all that. Story 16. How to search on the internet. People are less informed than ever. They like to post on online forums and wait for a response. Story 17. Patience to wait for a picture to load from whatever bulletin board system you were connected to. 14.4 to 28.8 and then to 56 kilobits per second were game-changing speed changes. Story 18. Probably just something simple like writing basic hypertext markup language code to create 1990s-looking MySpace pages. I had custom raindrops falling on my trash planet of a profile page. Story 19. Heck, just knowing how to troubleshoot a computer. How many Generation Z youths have had to get drivers, crawl through Device Manager, retrieve a family member's password in security, or had to change domain name system? I'm sure burning and ripping compact discs or using Videoland client to crack digital versatile discs sounds alien to many nowadays. Story 20. Having to know basic hypertext markup language and bulletin board code to have anything other than plain text in your online interactions. Story 21. Hand-selecting your subscriptions because the algorithm would get you about 10 related videos maximum before ending up on the unusual side of YouTube. Story 22. Enjoying what you are doing instead of letting engagement, algorithms, and financial incentives shape your choices. The best thing about the pre-social internet is that you were just there to be there. If you had a MySpace, you just wanted all the other Hannah Montana fans to know you were there. If you were on a coding forum, you were there to learn to code or to learn how to build a better Hannah Montana page. If you were on a bulletin board system, you did not know what to do because that was well before Hannah Montana. Story 23. At least at the very beginning, you had to be computer savvy to be on the internet. If you wanted to connect to a bulletin board system, you were editing modem connection strings and settings. It was not at all like it is today. America Online made it more accessible, but even then most people did not have a personal computer, so it was still a little friendly enclave for cool people to hang out. Today's internet is a hyper-corporatized shopping mall where everything has a logo and an angle. Back then, it was more like a weird flea market and music festival. You never knew what was around the corner. I miss it dearly. Story 24. I remember typing out a huge internet protocol address to get on a server to play a game like Quake. That reminds me, there was this program called WinNuke that, if you could get a person's internet protocol address, it would crash their computer. Am I misremembering that? Story 25. Actually using the internet. The internet is more than videos, TikTok, social media, apps, and beyond the first page on Google. I am a millennial, and in one of my high school classes, we covered how to find information using Google. Boolean searching, regular expressions, keywords, and not, but all of that. In all honesty, I did not use it much for a long time, but then I started to find it really helpful. Many search engines now have advanced search options, but there is still some information you have to search for manually. Story 26. Checking in every 10 minutes or so to see the torrent percentage and speed on a video clip you are really looking forward to. The anticipation when the speed starts climbing after a while. Story 27. Maybe not a skill, but there was software called SoftRAM, which was a program sold to people to increase the random access memory size on their personal computers. I remember having to explain to my sister how it was impossible to download more random access memory. Story 28. Finding a good server to play on can be challenging. There is no matchmaking or friends lists, just a large list of servers sorted by ping. It is important to read the server names to ensure they are not using unusual rules or only playing the same map repeatedly. Story 29. World-class multitasking while listening to the tone of dial-up. Sometimes I took a nap. Other times I ran downstairs, switched the laundry over, ran upstairs, checked the progress, ran downstairs to the fridge and grabbed something, then ran back upstairs where I waited another 45 seconds. On a fast day. Story 30. Making sure that the 25 megabyte game demonstration downloaded overnight so that no telephone calls would come through. It usually took all night, and even with a filter, a telephone call could still disconnect the modem. Story 31. Remembering multiple people's phone numbers because you physically dialed them. Going to the library to get information on a topic, which was much more accurate than using a search engine. Knowing how to get places without using maps. Story 32. Using a memory manager like Expanded Memory Manager 386 to access the reserved RAM between 640 kilobytes and 1 megabyte so I could play Wing Commander. Story 33. Editing autoexec.bat and config.sys to load your drivers into high memory so your games can load. Story 34. Finding a destination on a paper map, which is the size of a blanket. Challenge number 1. Find where you are at the moment. Story 35. Spending $400 at CompuServe for a month's worth of heavy web surfing, or spending $300 for a faster modem, or calling the phone company to have a second line installed just for the computer. Story 36. Having a shell account and using commands like finger to find someone's full name based on their email address. I once asked a girl if she ever touched herself, being completely clueless about the sexual connotations of the phrase. Story 37. Having a notebook to write down all your needed web addresses with the proper details is helpful because we do not always have access to search engines. In the early days, you had to use the good old trial and error method to find addresses online. We would stumble upon all kinds of websites. Story 38. Social media started very early with Internet Relay Chat. It was a command line program I used on Windows 3.1 with a 14.4 modem. Trading a picture of the person you were talking with took about 5 minutes, and it was not high resolution. Story 39. No heavy marketing and no 90% of pages that are completely unusable because of ads. Yes, for some, the internet was there to be creative or for fun and not to make business. There were fan pages, personal sites, or forums from people for people. Story 40. Making a home page in your public_HTML directory was common for everyone using an internet service provider. People just uploaded random files for their friends. Paint Shop Pro was popular. Before Google Chrome became dominant, there was Mosaic, Lynx, and Netscape. Lynx did not have a graphical user interface. Eudora was widely used. Uploading random song lyrics into a Markov chain generator and laughing at its reinterpretations was fun. People often confused old songs with Eliza. The old internet felt more creative to me because you were forced to be creative to get anything done. Story 41. Getting banned from the local bulletin board system and having to call the system operator on the telephone to request being unbanned. Story 42. I used Popmail. I carried a floppy disk that stored all my email. I connected to the internet to download my mail to the floppy disk and then sent the messages in my outbox. Story 43. Creating your own homepage with actual hidden links. Dude, just click the bottom right corner. Trust me. Story 44. If you were a comic book fan or something equally nerdy, you would have to trudge through message boards for the information you were looking for. There were no wikis with everything you could ever want to know. Story 45. Being smarter than your parents at using computers. My parents would put parental controls on my personal computer, and I would easily disable them. They would try to put passwords on the administrator account, and I would crack them. It was like a secret world they knew nothing about. Story 46. Turning off all images so a page will load faster, or making an image move with your cursor because it was half frozen. Story 47. Waiting hours up to a day just to download a 4 megabyte MP3. Also, the thrill of pirating music back then on Napster was beyond anything everyday regular people could imagine. Story 48. Anyone, anywhere, can post anything online, and you cannot believe the majority of what you see or read without proper sourcing and citing of information. Story 49. Not sharing your Active Directory security identifier or name online was considered a serious mistake. Also, assuming internet advertisements will cause severe damage to your computer is incorrect. Story 50. The art of creating the perfect away message on AOL Instant Messenger to subtly send a message to someone. For example, making an ex-boyfriend jealous. Story 51. Actually surfing websites instead of relying on collective intelligence and algorithms. You had to go out and look for your interests. Story 52. Chat rooms involving internet relay chat commands were popular. There were great communities, but it was a wild place. Hackers were everywhere, and our machines were highly exposed. Everyone could see a user's internet protocol address at a time when software firewalls barely existed. Story 53. The joys of the user network. It is a kind of preview of Reddit, but a much higher level of competence is required to actually access and use it. It is still around for the fortunate few. Story 54. I am kind of an anomaly. I am Generation X. I hated anything computer-related. Office work and simply surfing the internet was all I did. I was a lone officer until 2002. I left that job, went back to school, earned my certifications, and have been working in computers ever since. I missed the days before tools were available to do basic tasks, but have gained all that knowledge over the years. Who here was a mainframe administrator? Story 55. Calling 976 numbers to get credits for a bulletin board system. A bulletin board system is basically a self-contained online service that includes chat, forums, games, and other features, similar to someone running their own private America online. Story 56. How fast I could do the keyboard shortcut sequence to redial trumpet windsock repeatedly until a line at my internet service provider became available. Story 57. Changing the target IP for your massively multiplayer online role-playing game executable to play a pirate server for free, rather than the monthly subscription of the game where the game masters have taken bribes, making it pay to win. Story 58. Look up some old Usenet threads on textfiles.com. Everyone online was either a library user, student, academic, tech-savvy early adopter, or employed in the technology industry. People knew how to spell, use proper grammar, and compose a post. Few people actually used terms like laugh out loud, rolling on the floor laughing, or laughing my expletive off. That was the kind of language you would see in corny newspaper features about how to communicate on the information superhighway. It became the norm through dopey, annoying kids on AOL Instant Messenger, and they in turn infested the rest of the internet. Story 59. The offline social aspect was important. You found a lot of information by talking to people. There were random places where you could sign up for shell accounts on some server. Search engines were unreliable, and people were the way you discovered things. Story 60. Setting up the first online message board for my class, it immediately filled with drama. I was called into the principal's office when they found out my friend and I were the ones who created it. I had to take it down. Story 61. The fact is the internet is one of the most equitable places ever built. For $20, you can start a new website and share an idea with the entire planet without anyone's permission. Story 62. Browsing through many different pirate websites to find one you trust while carefully avoiding malware. Then downloading hundreds of gigabytes of media, but with seemingly 1,000 separate packages or downloads per gigabyte. Story 63. When that little bit of text above would shut down internet relay chat rooms and restart every web television connected. Story 64. Prioritizing downloads in software specifically designed to keep downloads active when they fail mid-download. Was that software product called GetRight? If I remember correctly. Story 65. Did you know you can directly input an Internet Protocol address in the browser to go directly to a website? That is how it was done before search engines, bookmarks, and homepages became common. Story 66. What I find crazy is how the rules have flipped. It used to be, every story is a lie unless there is an image. Now it is, every image is a lie unless there is a story. Story 67. I do not know that I would call it a skill, but one thing I randomly remember is AOL punters. Programs that just spammed HTML code and other various garbage via America Online's instant messenger messages, which essentially bogged down the recipient's computer and caused the receiver's dial-up connection to drop. Story 68. Those online scavenger hunts where you actually inspect code and enter the uniform resource locator to get to the next page of the puzzle. This makes me want to see if any are still around. The only one I remember by name was Not Prawn, but that was not my favorite. Story 69. Computer magazines contained code that you manually entered into your own computer. You would enter these lines one by one, and that was how you downloaded games. Story 70. How to use a search engine. They use social media comment boxes as the search engine box, transferring the duty of searching to other commenters. Story 71. Networking a modem into the house on a second telephone line. I had a local area network and a FreeBSD machine that ran version 2.2.6, which handled the modem, dynamic host configuration protocol, and establishing the connection when the data packet needed to be sent externally. It worked well. My brother and I could both be online, and 10 minutes after our last data packet was sent, the modem would disconnect and wait until it was needed again. This was around 1997 or 1998. Story 72. Honestly, I think many things that 1990s and 2000s computer users considered basic knowledge necessary for computer use are becoming forgotten or niche. Story 73. Avoiding suspicious websites knowing that you do not have antivirus software and reinstalling Windows was an entire difficult ritual. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.